All right, so yeah, I didn't learn my lesson in the Army. Now, it's been, if you can't tell, it's been a while since I finished the last video. This is, I think, 2 nights later. Since I stopped, I think it was part 4 of fear of abandonment, fear of being seen as a woman. So I am kind of starting kind of without my bearings, but I know I stopped kind of where I had just gotten out of the Army and I was going back to Salisbury, and the lesson just was not, when I left the Army, I was aware that of what I was doing. I was aware that I was seeking validation from other people, and that in some way I was hurting myself by doing that, but it didn't, just thinking that wasn't enough for me to change my behavior. And so I came home to Salisbury and kind of continued on in the same way almost. And where is the camera? It's over here, huh? I don't like looking at the camera, I prefer to look at myself. At that time, I'm just going to go ahead and tell the story because the story is related to why I started this whole video in the first place. But 3 or 4 days ago, I was at the gym. I wasn't there to work out. I had been drinking the night before, and I was hungover the next day pretty bad. I mean, I was feeling pretty rough. And so I went to the gym just to sit in the sauna and hopefully sweat out some alcohol or whatever else was making me feel like trash. And I was in there by myself at first, but then an older gentleman came in to sit with me, and he didn't come in there to sit with me. He came in there to sit in the sauna, and we started talking, and the subject of drinking came up, and I started talking about how when I didn't tell him about the whole Army thing, but the time period that I was referring to was the time after I got out of the Army, and I was telling him how I used to have to drink to be around people. And I was referring to that time after I got out of the Army where I would go to bars to meet people, because when I was in the Army I was surrounded by people. When I got out I was pretty much by myself, and so I was going to bars to meet people. But I had to be drunk to talk to people. I never went to a bar and just like stood there sober and just started up talking to someone. I might start talking while I was sober, but I had a drink in my hand, within a few minutes. And so he and I were talking about that, and that was one of the reasons why I've started cutting down on my drinking. I'm not abstinent, but I have severely cut down on my drinking, and it was largely, for one, it just wasn't helping me in my life. I mean, my life was just not, I was making progress, I felt like, in my life, but the drinking was counterproductive. And so we were talking about that, but it was the talking about the fact that I had to be drunk to be around people that made me kind of think about making this video, because it was a fear of abandonment, largely the fear of, maybe I should include that in the title, but it was a fear of exposing myself to people. And it wasn't specifically the fear of being seen as a woman. At that time, I didn't really think that's what it was. I thought it was just more a fear of exposing just my emotional insides, I guess, maybe, my pain and whatever else that would make people not want a relationship with me. And so during that time, I mean, I was not making connections with people. I was meeting people and talking to people, people I met at bars. Some of us became friends on Facebook, and we're still connected on Facebook, but I wasn't really making like real friends, and it got to a point where even with the drugs and alcohol, where I just felt like I can't do this. I remember talking to a girl once when I was drunk, and I could hardly get words out of my mouth, and I felt so shitty during that period. I mean, it was a few years. I got out of the Army in 2005. I made my trans discovery when I was around about 2014, 2015. So it's about 10 years. So for about, even when I was in the Army, it was emotionally a rough time. But for the 10 years that I got out of the Army, that was probably, the years after the Army were more depressing than the years in the Army. Even though in the Army I was, I would say, mistreated. But after I got out of the Army, I wasn't really mistreated, but I was more depressed. And a lot of that was just because I was no longer surrounded by people. I did have to go to bars to meet people. I wasn't like in a, I lived by myself in an apartment, and I just felt like my life had no direction. I felt like I had no purpose. I'm not going anywhere. It's basically me living according to my whims. It's like whatever I feel like doing now, I'll just go do it, and it won't have any really long-reaching aim. It won't be to save the world or cure cancer. It'll just be me. It's like, well, I feel like maybe I'll go get an energy drink and come back and get on MySpace, kind of thing. And that to me was very depressing. That was it just was not a very good time, and I don't think I was seeing a psychologist during that time. I think I had stopped seeing my psychologist, and I'm trying to stay on track, and I'm trying to think what my track is. Getting back on track here. So the track is fear of abandonment, fear of being seen as a woman. And during this time, I think it became, I was a little bit more, I was getting a little bit more socially outgoing during this time, even though it was depressing. I was in a band for a little bit, and that in itself was kind of like me coming out of my shell. Like being up in front of people playing music was super fun, but it was totally outside of my comfort zone. But even I was still, the feelings of awkwardness and that kind of stuff were still there. The band, it didn't last very long. We had a very bad experience in a band competition thing. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? We were in a band competition at a local bar, and our lead singer got super drunk, or maybe he was fucked up on something else, I don't know, but he couldn't sing that night. And not just that, but we didn't have much time to set up, and I was the bass player, and the sound that I had was just pretty shitty, and it was a very embarrassing moment. And that kind of goes to what I'm talking about, that fear of abandonment. For me, that was enough to make me walk away from the band and not have to go through that again, because that was embarrassment is in a sense is basically a form of fear of being abandoned, or fear of being ridiculed, or whatever, which ridicule and abandonment I think kind of go hand in hand, because if you're ridiculed, that kind of means you're at the bottom, and the person at the bottom is the one most at risk of being abandoned. That's my theory. That if you're treated like you're worthless, that means you're not important to the group, and the group can get rid of you at any time. And so, if you're being ridiculed, that means your fear of abandonment is kicking in. And so that was, but that's not the point of this video. So I guess I'll just skip ahead to the trans discovery. When I got to the trans discovery, I became very aware of what a people pleaser I was, of how I was basically putting other people's wants and wishes in front of my own. And it was to the point that I didn't even know who I was, that I didn't even know that I was trans. You know, it took me 30 some years to discover that I was trans, because I was so closed off from my own self, from basically trying to fit in and trying to get approval from other people, that I didn't even know that I was trans, that I don't even know my own desires, in a way. And that might sound crazy, and I probably wouldn't say it if I hadn't actually read that somewhere else. But I think I read somewhere something about how do you know if a person doesn't know who they are? It's if they don't know what they want. If a person doesn't know what they want, that's a sign that they don't know who they are. That's what I read, and that it makes sense to me, because I felt like I didn't know who I was, and I also felt like I didn't know what I wanted. It seemed like I wasn't getting what I wanted. Anyways, I just talked about in another video kind of what I want in life. I kind of know what I want now, which is relationships, at least. But it became apparent to me that I was bowing to other people, or I had been bowing to other people, and it wasn't just a bowing. It was a kind of, I was abandoning myself, almost. Or I shouldn't even say almost, I was. That I had in a certain sense, abandoned myself in the attempt to not be abandoned by other people. And so when I was, the trans discovery kind of redirected me towards myself. And that's kind of where I kind of started to see that I was putting other people's needs before my own. And but I also realized that all that fear was actually based on something. Because look at me now. Wearing a wig and a woman's top, and who is here with me? Not a single person. And I'm in a hotel room for two, but it's just me here. And I actually got this room because I wanted to put makeup on, and I ran out of makeup. Isn't that ironic? But I live where I work, and where I work I can't wear makeup. And so I don't wear makeup where I live, because if someone comes by the shop and I'm wearing makeup, that is a problem. And so I also want to just get to a place where I feel like I could relax, because it is difficult to relax when I'm there. But I want to put makeup on for a video. I've made several videos now. I haven't worn makeup once, and so I wanted to do that. So I kind of got the hotel just for you guys, in a way, because I wanted to wear it for you. But yeah, so it did. Hopefully, I've kind of come full circle here, because while for most of my life I would say I wasn't so much consciously aware of being afraid of being seen as a woman. I was totally afraid of being exposed, and it became clear over time that what I was afraid of people seeing was me being a woman. And you might say people will never, they didn't actually see me as a woman, or they don't see me as a woman. But I was afraid for them to see that. And you know what I forgot to mention? I think when I was a teenager, and whenever I was going through puberty, so like 11 to 12, I was afraid of growing breasts. I may have mentioned that in one of my videos. I'm not entirely sure. I've made so many videos now, it's hard to keep track of all this stuff and remember what I've said in real life and what I've said in my imagination, because I've said a lot of stuff in my imagination before I even get started. But I was afraid of growing breasts when I realized that I was going through puberty. Once I started seeing changes in my body and that kind of thing, I started working out at the gym because I knew that working out helps to get rid of fat, and I thought, well, if I grow breasts, the way to get rid of them will be to work out to get rid of the fat. And that began my gym life, an attempt to prevent myself from getting breasts. So if that's not an indication that my fear of exposing myself was in large part, at least, to the fear of being seen as a woman, I don't know what is. And so that is, I have several motives for making these videos, and one of them is that what is the best way to deal with the fear of being seen as a woman? Is to show yourself as a woman to people, right? I hope so. I feel better already making these videos, and especially because I'm wearing a wig, and women's clothes. Does it look like I have boobs in this? Kind of. I don't have boobs. Man boobs, maybe. So I kind of feel like I'm at the conclusion of this video. I'm feeling like I didn't really have a very good point. But I do feel like I've kind of basically talking about the realization that I've had, at least of what I was doing, seeking validation from other people, seeking acceptance from other people, instead of getting it to myself, from myself. That's kind of where I'm at now. It is giving up the need for validation from other people is not very easy. Anytime I'm invalidated, I kind of remind myself that, they're not God. That person is not God. And their judgment is not, that's not something you need to take to heart. And that is kind of my current challenge, I would say. Maybe that's the best way to put it. That is my current challenge, is learning how to not do that. And part of that is from exposing this side of me. Maybe some of it's just from learning how to control my own thoughts and that kind of thing, and not dwell on things. Because for one, it makes life, if I haven't made it clear already, it makes life painful. But in a certain way, it's almost like stupid painful. Like me being offended because a guy called me handsome. That to me is I feel like an unjustified, I feel like that is a sign that I have a problem, I guess is my way, what I'm getting at. That it's not, when a guy tells me that I'm handsome and I get offended, that to me means my need for validation from other people is kind of, in a way, unhealthy. Or that the validation I'm looking for is almost, in a way, unrealistic, maybe. But that happened. I was working at Starbucks, and I was wearing makeup, and I think a woman's shirt I wasn't wearing a wig because I don't wear wigs to work. I did try it once, and wearing a wig to work to me was such a nuisance that I didn't want to do it again. And plus, I was scared. Scared of being seen too much like a woman. I mean, even when I present as a woman, and in many cases I don't present to the point that I would pass, I would say. And I think that is in large part that I'm afraid of people actually seeing me as a woman and not as a man dressed as a woman. I almost feel like I would prefer for people to see me as a man dressed as a woman, because then they see that I'm actually a man, if that makes sense, and not an actual woman. And there is a part of me that, even though I am wearing a wig and this kind of thing, basically like I just said, that I am actually afraid. If you actually thought that I was an actual woman, I think I would be bothered by that, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. I don't know if that is I mean, if you've seen my internalized misogyny video, if you haven't, you might want to. I don't know, but I don't know if that's what that is, internalized whatever. But my voice too, like when I talk, I still talk like a guy, and I kind of do that on purpose because I'm still afraid. I kind of feel like I've said all I need to say. I'm sure I might think of something after I stop, but I kind of feel like this is a good place to stop, because if I keep going, it's basically just going to be rambling. Good night.